Hi, I'm Amanda Beard, 7-time medalist. I get my Aquasphere gear at swimoutlet.com, the web's most popular swim shop. Check them out today.
Welcome to the Morning Swim Show for Wednesday, January 4th, 2012. I'm your host, Peter Bush. In the Phoenix Monitor today, we'll talk to Jeff Pease, founder and head coach of North Coast Aquatics. Jeff joins us right now in the Phoenix Monitor from San Diego. Coach, Happy New Year. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. Same to you.
So, yesterday we talked to Tony Bates from Palo Alto, whose team recently got on the USA Swimming Club Excellence list. Your team is on that list as well. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Tell us about your coaching philosophy there at North Coast Aquatics.
Well, I've been, this is going into my 36th year, believe it or not, 33 with North Coast Aquatics since I founded it in 1979. And, you know, I don't think my philosophy has changed tremendously. I'm very big on what we call now capacity coaching with the kids I coach, 13 to 18-year-olds. And I've been really had a pretty set, constant cycle for several years now. We've changed things around. Mostly what we've changed probably has been the dryland program, but I would say the training cycle in the water has been pretty constant for several years.
Capacity coaching, what does that mean? How would you describe
that means building the base, building the aerobic capacity. You know, I listened to a talk by Bob Bowman back in the spring, and he talked about the #1 goal of age group of really developmental coaches, which, you know, I consider myself to be, you know, coaching 13 to 18-year-olds, is that, you know, our job is to build the biggest bucket of capacity, and that really stuck with me. And I think that as the kids get older, then, you know, the goal is to start utilizing that capacity. So that's really what I've done for the last several years.
Fascinating how different coaches can have great success using different philosophies, isn't it? Because a lot of coaches these days do more of, you know, high intensity, less aerobic work kind of stuff. And it just shows, I mean, different methods can work.
I think, Peter, that it really depends on your athletes, and what I found that most of the athletes that I get in the sport are what I consider aerobic athletes. They're not really anaerobic. They're younger, they're less mature, they have less muscle, and I just felt like that this model worked better for those kids than, you know, throwing a lot of intensity at them. I mean, we do some fast swimming, you know, every week, but I would say the meat and potatoes of our program is what I call threshold training, which we do almost 40 to 50% of the week.
All right, let's talk about some of those swimmers that you're training right now. Kendall Stewart, great high school swimmer right now, butterflyer going to USC. We actually had her on the show not too long ago. She seemed like a great kid.
Oh, she is an awesome young lady, a great teammate, very coachable, and she's really learning, particularly in the last year, to find out how good she can be. And we're really excited. We think she's going to be a player at the trials.
You got a good distance swimmer, Eric Hedlund.
Have Eric, he's now in Canada. He decided he's got dual citizenship with Canada, so he's spending the year up in Victoria, Vancouver, going to school and training with Randy Bennett, who's the national team distance coach for Canada. And their trials are in April, and it'll be really exciting. Right now, he's the second fastest miler in Canada. And so we're excited to see, hopefully, he make the Canadian Olympic team.
That's neat. I hadn't heard that. And, of course, you mentioned you go back to North Coast Aquatics all the way back to 1979 when you founded the team. And it's sort of one of the unique parts about the club. It was a coach-run and founded club.
Correct.
I don't know. Is that still rare today, or are there a lot more teams that have followed that model?
I think more and more coaches are taking their, you know, destiny into their own hands. You know, it's difficult to work for a parent group that changes boards, you know, on a yearly or you know, semi-regular basis, and you're always having to re-educate parents. And I found that I would not, honestly, to be very candid with you, I would not be coaching 36 years later if it hadn't been for the fact that I started my own team.
One of your greatest coaching successes was Kurt Grote back in the 90s. 96
Correct.
Olympian for the Americans. And as the story goes, as our resident brushstroker Jeff Cummings tells it to me, Kurt was a freestyler, but you realized that he was going to be better off as a breaststroker, so you helped make the transition, which led to him being kind of a no-name swimmer to national champion in like a year.
Yes, Kurt was a really late bloomer. He played soccer growing up, and he became allergic to grass. I'm highly allergic to grass. If you know his story, he was highly asthmatic young person, and his doctor told him to start swimming. He came out to swim for me 2 weeks before the high school championships because he didn't know how to use a starting blocker. He didn't know how to turn, and he was qualified for his first high school championships in the 50 and the 100 free. And thought he was a sprinter, thought he was a sprint freestyler. And then he had a little success at that championship and then came out for my year-round club. And a year later, he won the 50 and the 100 free at the high school championships. But the day after the high school championships, his junior year in high school, he asked me if he could just enter a club meet and swim the 100 breast for fun. And I said, wow, this is where this kid needs to be. And that was the start of it.
What was it about he did in the swim that maybe you didn't notice in training earlier, or had you just not trained any breaststroke and seen his great potential?
You know, we spent so much time just trying to get him to survive practice because he was so far behind the group that, you know, and he had a lot of kids in the group that were a lot better than him. So, you know, we were tunnel visioned with him being a sprint freestyler. But he would, on IM sets, I would watch this kick that he would have, and he had this natural surge to his kick, very unorthodox breaststroke stroke. But I said, you know, I think that this needs to be something we need to develop. And by that summer, he was already qualified for the summer junior nationals. By the next fall, he made senior nationals in the breaststrokes. And, you know, basically walked on to Stanford. If you talk to Skip Kenny, he probably will say he's probably the greatest walk-on in the history of Stanford swimming, men's swimming.
Yep, and the rest is history.
Really fast-tracked, yeah.
Well, Coach, that's a very interesting story. That's really cool. I had no idea. Well, thanks a lot for sharing it. Any big, did you have nice holidays, I hope?
Well, I've had a couple days off, but we're in the middle of, as most programs are, we're in the middle of a winter training camp. We're about 12 workouts into 20 practices, so I'm spending a lot of time on the pool deck right now.
Well, Coach, Happy New Year once again to you. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Have a good day.
All right, that's Jeff Pease joining us in the Phoenix Monitor today from San Diego, and that's it for today's show. I'm Peter Bush, reminding you to keep your head down at the finish.